I hope you appreciate the effort I put into these videos. Do you know how hard it is to find a skirt that fits this? Anyways, I watched another anime.
Seitokai Yakuindomo, or in English, the student council staff members, or in Spanish, miembros del personal del consejo estudiantil.
Yes, I use Google Translate for that.
Was originally a 4-koma manga created by Tozen Ujie, and is his only work he's made in the past 14 years, until recently in May of this year when he finally released a second work called Yaotome x2, which at the time of recording does not have any official scans or translations.
And for those unaware, 4-koma manga just means it's a 4-panel manga.
And refers to the fact that it tells its small stories, usually quick jokes, within a set of 4 panels and then moves on to the next joke. This is important to note because once you watch the anime, it becomes very apparent that that's how it was originally written.
So think Way of the House Husband, but with more dildos. Did I mention this was a sex comedy?
Despite being a slice of life anime about high school students doing student council work, this is in fact a sex comedy that is also super self-aware.
This man built the last 14 years of his career off of dick jokes. I'm impressed.
So in the later episodes and the movies, it becomes much more meta to the point that it starts fucking with its own animation.
Because it knows that we know that it's an anime.
It was animated by Studio Gohands,
as opposed to Stop Feet,
which no one has heard of unless you're one of the 4 people who have watched K or Kings.
And if you're asking what the hell that is, exactly.
Gohands have worked on a number of works, all of which either being Seitokai related or Kings related, with a couple of random OVAs and Marduk movies. I don't know what Marduk is, but they made 3 of them.
Yep, that's a number.
Now, despite having never heard of Gohands or any of their other works, let me just say, you know how Nyan Goi had really bad animation despite being a company that worked on a bunch of different anime, including some bigger named ones? Yeah, Gohands basically just said,
we're just gonna make our stuff look nice.
Yes, I'm talking about the animation already, because with Seitokai being a slice of life anime, there's no story. Slice of life anime rarely have overarching stories with a major goal and instead focus more on day-to-day lives of the characters as they just kinda, exist. And since there isn't a story, I'm not gonna be able to just sit in a chair and explain the entire plot to you as a comprehensive review. Instead, I'm gonna do this as an actual review, meaning I will need to have a list of criteria to base my reviews off of and a scoring system to rank how well each category does comparatively.
So I'm just gonna steal Saberspark's 5-point category and then throw in an extra category just for best girl. I love you, Saber. So we'll be going through the story, the voice acting, the dialogue, editing, and finally the animation, which I've already begun to go over. I never said I would go in that exact order, alright? Lists are hard when you're list dexic. So anyways.
Holy shit, the animation's good. Like, you know how it feels when you get a perfect peel of plastic off of a new electronic? Ah, fuck yeah.
I will say, they really do like their lens flares, aka these guys.
But it's colorful and gorgeous during all the right moments. During some scenes, as well as during the opening song, there's another small detail for the animation that I noticed and I feel like no one else would really care about.
But I do, damn it!
And that's the fact that there's parallaxing happening, meaning that these are all 2D drawings taking place within a 3D space. So, for reference, parallaxing is basically when objects are at different distances from the camera, aka different depths, and then they'll move across the screen at different speeds relative to that distance. This, of course, adds depth to some of the scenes, but it can almost be jarring at times because while some other anime will do it, it's incredibly noticeable here. Also, the show does not look like this the whole time, but it uses that to its advantage. Since it's a comedy show, it'd be weird for the punchlines to happen while looking pretty, especially considering what some of the punchlines are gonna be like.
We will get to that.
And instead, opts into using chibi drawings specifically for the jokes. So when there's no punchline being made, have normal animation, and as soon as it turns to chibi, boom, dick joke.
Yeah, this has a lot of dick jokes. Speaking of dick jokes...
Listen, this show might be one of the funnier anime I've seen in recent memory, but there is no highbrow humor here. Like, look at this character, a normal sweet girl with some big sis energy. Except she actually makes some of the most crude jokes and has a metal chastity belt she wears constantly, with the key being held by her maid that sniffs all of her clothes and is constantly trying to fuck.
She's one of the more normal characters.
Story-wise, main guy starts going to a local high school that just became co-ed the year prior, and before that, it was just an all-girls school.
So every high school rom-com ever.
He ends up getting roped into being the student council vice president since the student council is entirely female and they'd like a boy's perspective on issues moving forward.
That's it. That's the premise. From here on out, we'll get characters added here and there, but that's pretty much it. This show, as well as pretty much any other slice of life anime, has no goal and instead will focus around character interactions with specific character traits and maybe some character development if you're lucky. I'm really just explaining how all slice of life works, but that's it.
stuff happens. Since the focus is on the characters, I suppose we should go over the main 4 characters with their roles/personalities. We have our main boy, Tsuda Takatoshi, who plays the straight man and voice of reason in nearly every scenario and is a freshman. Next is Amaka Sashino, who is the current president and is mentally stuck in a state of perpetual puberty, constantly making dirty jokes, and is a junior. Then we have the secretary, Shichijo Aria, who is incredibly rich.
Yes, being rich is a personality trait for this show.
And is either a secret genius when it comes to wordplay, or is the most dense airhead that has no idea what's happening. She's also a junior as well. Finally, we have Hagimura Suzu, who is 16.
She's a freshman, I promise.
With an IQ of 180, speaks multiple languages, and is the student council's accountant. She's also incredibly short and very conscious of her body. Beyond that are a vast number of supporting characters that will come and go between different episodes, with each one having a specific trait to play off of. So for the timeline, this is where it'll get a bit confusing. Okay, so Season 1 was released in 2010, but then there were 8 OVAs released between 2011 and 2013, and then there's Season 2, which was released in 2014, but then they released a movie in 2017, and then released another movie during 2021. But the problem is that the movies take place before the end of Season 2, but after Season 1, so there's somewhere around Episode 8, I think, because the characters introduced in the movies don't make an appearance on the show, even though there should be time left in the school year for them to appear, and it makes no sense why you'd go back and retroactively add characters after we already had a send-off, especially if you consider the end of the first movie, which heavily hints that Shino confesses to Suda but then fades to black, and then 4 years later we get another movie with no continuation of the Shino and Suda romance, and then it just fucking ends.
Do you understand how much of this show I had to watch for this video? I watched both full-length seasons, I watched all 8 of the OVAs, both full-length movies, and quickly read as much of the manga as I could stomach, and this is how they left it. Like, just, okay, fuck it, let's talk about the jokes.
Do you like dick jokes?
You're in luck.
So being a sex comedy, there's plenty of jokes about periods and penises and boobs and dicks. Now, would this get old if it was your 14-year-old cousin telling you jokes that his friends had said in the locker room? Probably, but put into the context of an absurd world and have the main character we follow playing the straight man groaning and calling them out, it makes it a much more enjoyable experience. And to make it even better, the writing's actually clever.
Your cousin wishes he could be that smart.
So while some of the jokes are obvious, low-hanging fruit, there's also some that actually took me a second to think about before getting, which was pretty nice. The only real issue is that while the wordplay is very clever, there's also certain sayings that just don't make any sense to an English speaker. Figure of speech.
Not something we often think about because many of the ones we come across day to day, we already know the meanings of, so we don't think about it that much.
Metaphors like it's raining cats and dogs or roller coaster of emotions, we typically know the meaning of.
Yeah, in other cultures, there's different metaphors that mean totally different things, and we've never heard of them, so we typically just don't know the meaning right away.
And then you try to translate those metaphors into a comprehensive statement that a stupid English-speaking American can understand.
Yeah, that's fucking hard. There's definitely jokes that don't land, mainly because I'm too, stupid to understand because it's not made for an English speaker, so I also can't really complain, I guess.
That being said, it's still a really well-written show, especially for a sex comedy, with some of my favorite persistent jokes not even being dialogue between characters, but instead being that Hagimura is short, so like in half the scenes she's in, she's not even actually in them. Instead, they just have a little text box saying she's somewhere off screen. I don't want to sit here and explain every joke, but that's so fucking funny to me.
Plus, it's kind of genius because it means you have less things to animate, which is my bad segue into our next section. I'm gonna be throwing music into this section as well because a lot of times music and sound effects get decided on during the post-production process. Fuck. Shit. No.
So the editing. It's really good.
I mean, it's not as good as mine, but,
Everything is quick and snappy, and it's really difficult to find a moment within the show that you could actually just call boring from lack of stuff happening. There is a rhythm to the show, which is either a good thing or a bad thing, depending on whether or not you enjoy that cycle.
Kinda like having a child.
Normal animation, slower pace to set up the scenario and the subsequent punchline, usually one of a handful of tracks made for the show that'll vaguely sound appropriate. Then once it's time for the punchline, drop all the music, cut to chibi-fied versions of the characters with fewer animation frames, have a character say something clever related to the situation or just absolutely absurd even within context, and then have one or more of the grounded characters just call them out and say how stupid the situation is.
Then repeat that 10 more times and you have a single episode of the show. It can get pretty repetitive in terms of how it presents itself, but if you can make it past that one drawback, then you're in for a great time. Kinda like having a child.
Do you think that's a fair comparison?
Yeah, probably not.
And now for the music, and oh my god, this shit slaps harder than that one guy from that one awards show. I don't know. I don't watch sports. Is that joke even relevant anymore? Probably not. That shows you when I wrote the script originally. But holy shit, just listen to this.
I was going to play the music for you guys, but DMCA is scary, so instead, I'm just gonna have the tracks listed below, and I'm gonna dance to them, and then you can just pull them up in another tab and play them yourself. Like, damn. Damn.
The weakest song is definitely the second season's ending track, but my god, the openings are both just mega bangers. I normally skip openings, but for this show, for both seasons, I let them play out just because of how good the music was. The music during the actual show is also pretty good. There's definitely a step up between season 1 to season 2. I mean, with like a 4-year gap between, I'd sure fucking hope so. But the editor cutting the music to help emphasize a punchline, while helpful initially to make the absurdity of each joke stand out, slowly just starts to become a record scratch that you hear in your head every 2 minutes.
But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about something I know next to nothing about: the Japanese language.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't speak Japanese.
Clearly.
I know it's pretty obvious, but I always support full transparency and honesty. Like when someone asks you to guess what they did the other day and you just tell them,
I don't care.
Since I watched the show subbed, because again, white, it makes it a little difficult for me to really judge the voice acting in another language. I can't tell what is and isn't good delivery of lines and what possibly sounds believable. Not to say I won't notice blatantly bad voice acting, but due to the language barrier, it's quite a bit harder. I watched Nyan Koi in English because the voice acting was bad, and if I didn't have that to rip on, it'd be an incredibly boring show with absolutely no redeeming qualities to justify giving it the time of day. It'd be like watching The Room, but having literally anyone else play Tommy's character. It'd be the same story, but it would lose everything that made it special. Something fun about what I did get to listen to was actually the duality of a couple of the characters' voices, specifically Suda, Hagimura, and the teacher, who have two radically different voices depending on if it's a normal scene or if it's a punchline scene. I think that's something cool, just seeing the range of voices that voice actors and actresses can reach. Another fun fact, the voice actress that played the teacher had these voices.
そうしたら張り倒された。なんでだろう。彼はすでに結婚しててね。メトリに興味があった私には絶好の機会。
Also, she plays Sasha Bloss on Attack on Titan. These are the same character.
Yeah, that's just funny to me.
So voice acting, it's solid. Kinda hard to mess it up for me considering I don't speak the language, because again, but the voice acting never takes me out of the show, and since it isn't jarring and all the characters' writing is believable enough, within the context of an absurd world, it's more than passable. Also, my favorite voice actress personally would have to be the voice actress for Hata, aka the newspaper club girl, because something about the nasally sound is just so fitting with her demeanor. She also played Peke in To Love Ru.
God, I'm looking forward to that one. Wow, this went a lot faster than I thought it would. Holy shit. I'd rather not have this video be another 30-minute long video, so we'll just wrap it up here. Overall thoughts for the show, we're gonna give it a 7 out of 10, 7 right here somewhere, 7 out of 10 rating, mainly because I binge watched the whole show as fast as possible, which is just not recommended for this show or this type of content, which isn't a fault of the show itself, more so just what I kind of force myself to do. This show is way better in very small bursts.
I'd recommend watching only an episode or two at a time, because otherwise it's pretty easy to just stop paying attention for a moment, look back and realize like, wow, I really didn't miss anything, huh? Like, how many minutes apart do you think are these two different scenes? Well, this is episode 1, and this is episode 13 of the second season. Individual ratings for the different seasons of movies are as follows, and I'll be updating the My Anime list accordingly. And now for Best Girl.
Okay, I'm stuck between Hagimura and Hata, but for two very different reasons.
Hagimura is great as a secondary straight man to every situation and fills in whenever Tsuda isn't pregnant.
Why the fuck did I say pregnant?
But also has her own moments of absurdity. Also, I'm just a fan of incredibly feisty shorter girls. You can blame her for that. Hata, however, feels much more fun on screen, but a large part of that is due to the animation they use for her character, which has less to do with her as a person and the fact that she mainly manipulates those around her in usually harmless ways to profit.
Fuck it. Hagimura is best girl for this series. Also, if we're gonna keep on with the girlfriend, how long she lasted, 1 episode. She only lasted 1 episode.
I couldn't keep up. I had no idea what was going on.
And yeah, that's it.